It's been revealed that detectives tried 8 times to get Ivan Milat to confess to the backpacker murders. Milat died in Long Bay Prison Hospital just after 4 o'clock on Sunday morning, having never admitted to his crimes. Joining me now is Clive Small. He was the lead investigator on the Ivan Milat case. Clive, good to see you. Were you at all surprised that he gave up nothing on his deathbed?
No, not at all. Fully expected him to die, maintaining his position of, I have information which you want, and I'm not going to tell anyone about it.
Why
I'm
was
the
that?
boss.
Was it contempt for his fellow man, contempt for the police, or something else?
That's probably one way of putting it, but it was about Ivan seeing himself as the boss, the person in control, the person in charge, the person who could do anything he wanted.
Wow, it's quite extraordinary that there could be more victims out there. Do you firmly believe that there are?
Yes, there are 3 other unsolved murders, one in particular, where I have no doubt that Ivan was the murderer. There are 2 cases where young girls were abducted and murdered, and the murders were carried out in a similar way to which Ivan carried out the backpacker murders, and I'd have a strong suspicion regarding them.
With his death and without a deathbed confession, do you lose hope of those 3 murders ever being solved?
In practical terms, I just don't see how you could solve them now. There are no witnesses. The victims are obviously dead, and the killer is dead.
What motivated Ivan Milat?
From what I can interpret, it was simply about him making the point, I'm the boss. I'm going to go out, drive around the streets, pick up hitchhikers. Once they get into my car, they're under my control and they will do what I want. That is, I want to attack them in various ways and I'm going to kill them.
And was there anything in his past, in his childhood, that led him to be a killer? Did he set out to be a killer, or did that control get the better of him at some point?
No, it's very likely that the killing started quite early, perhaps even the early 1970s. We know that in addition to the killings, he abducted a number of hitchhikers with intent to rape them or attack them, abuse them, and a couple of them at least escaped him. And that was during the 1970s. We also know that in the first case we know of was in 1971, when he picked up 2 girls and attacked them, but they escaped. So it's certainly been a long time running, and when you look at his criminal history, he's been active for a long time.
What was it like dealing with him?
Well, it was a case of him just simply sitting there looking at you saying, I'm the boss, I'm in charge, I'm running the show,
He was clever, though.
No, I wouldn't say he was clever. He was just, he was really, I guess, his mind was locked into stories about himself. And if you have a look at the pictures of himself that were taken by family members, you'll see they're all poses of him exercising power and authority, sitting on a lounge holding firearms, wearing a cowboy cap or so on, and that sort of thing. But all of them were intended to exercise his authority, and including the fact, which I think is one of the most notorious aspects of him, that he took property belonging to all these victims.
Wow. As trophies?
As trophies. Then he gave some of that property to his girlfriend to wear, to family friends, like backpacking equipment to family friends and that, and he could see them then using property of the victims he killed.
As you were closing in on him, was he ever intimidated? Did he ever show signs of being afraid of going to jail, or was that all part of the control, all part of the game? No,
it was all part of the control. He didn't exercise any panic or can I do a deal or what can we do or anything like that. It was always an attitude which reflected, I'm the boss, I'm in control, and I'm not going to tell you what happened, you prove it.
How do you feel about his death?
I think his death will benefit Australia in the ways that he's now gone. He had in fact tried over a number of occasions to escape from jail, going back quite some years, but he'd tried to escape. And I don't think he was ever going to express any remorse or sorrow in any way at all. And I think that with his passing, at least the families of the victims might get some peace and some peace and comfort out of his passing. The problem is we will never know the full number of people that he's killed, even beyond the 3 I mentioned.
Of the victims' families, were their expectations always managed? Did you always tell them that Ivan Milat was never going to confess?
They were dealt with as best we could. They had a very difficult time handling the matter, particularly seeing Ivan's performance and so on, and the claims and the way he behaved. But there was a matter of dealing with them as closely and personal as you could. But at the same time, we had to remember that a number of those people were going to give evidence in the court proceedings, and we had to make sure that you couldn't behave socially or anything with them in a way that could compromise those proceedings.
Well, Clive, that closes a evil chapter in Australia's history, and I'm sure a chapter in your investigating career as well.
Thank you. If I could just make one little comment quickly. There's talk about Ivan continually saying they couldn't prove it, I didn't do it, and so on. What has had very little attention is the fact that there were about 150 witnesses gave evidence at his trial, and there were over 300 exhibits implicating him, for the most part, in the murders.
And he died in jail.
And he died in jail.